What is a good weakness to mention on a job interview? Being vague. Can you elaborate? Quote, yeah, edit. Well, was having a not-so-cool day but got here to see I got my first gold. Thanks, stranger. Now to figure out what it does. Asterisk, probably. If you are changing industries, your biggest weakness is not knowing the industry. Yet, if you are younger, say inexperience, anything to show your willingness to learn and develop. Depends on the position. But I will sometimes say that I have trouble delegating when I know I can perform a task well. I'd rather just do it myself and know that everything will be done correctly. Edit. Thank you for the various precious metals. I realize this advice can backfire. That's why I said sometimes. There is also a way to phrase this that makes you sound better. I used this and got a job. Probably not the swinging moment, but said the same. I used the analogy of, say we are both in my house, and I leave before you and tell you to lock the door. You can jump in my car and I'll ask if you locked the door and you'll tell me yes. I should trust you, but at the same time it gives me an anxiety that would best be relieved if I went and double-checked or more honestly, did it myself. I was asked this during an interview with Uber and I was completely caught off guard. I ended up fumbling and saying something along the lines of, I cannot ride a unicycle, for which I immediately regretted. Let me guess, the head of Uber's unicycling division was not impressed. One question ends all interviews. What is something you cannot do? Quote, I stumbled, stuttered, panicked, froze. Which of my flaws would I disclose? I try too hard. I'm OCD. I won't just leave perfection be. I'm too strong-willed. I'm sometimes sick. They're staring at you. Answer quick. I have but one Achilles heel. I cannot balance on one wheel. You have earned your eggnog. I once got a job partly because of my honest answer to this. I need to know why I am doing what I'm doing. I don't like being told to do something without an end game in mind, without knowing the reasoning behind it. When I work, I need something to aim at. Some employers don't like this because they like their employees to be cogs in a machine they control. I don't like those jobs and I don't want them. Monsieur, the place I was applying to was not that kind of workplace, and they liked my answer. Ended up being a great job where my boss valued my input and trusted me to take the reins on a variety of tasks. Edit. Well, thanks for the gold and silver. Rip my inbox. I interviewed a girl once and she said, honestly? Cake. I could never say no to it. And #X200B. She was so genuine and the answer struck us all as honestly hilarious. We hate those corporate interview questions too. It was more about finding someone who could answer questions like a real person and had some sort of personality show through. It's amazing how many people just couldn't answer certain questions, as though they were so nervous to get it wrong they froze up. And #X200B. In another interview, my boss asked a candidate, tell me about a time you screwed up at work. She thought for a while and said, gosh, I'm sorry. There are certainly times, but there's nothing major that comes to mind at the moment. I'll think on it while we do other questions. That's what we wanted as interviewers, not a perfect answer. Just people that seemed comfortable and normal. Lol. Seems like the cake answer is a little too cutesy and a cop-out. But you're totally right. Being on both ends in my professional experience, I found that as an interviewee the best thing you can do is just try to make the whole experience as comfortable and relaxed as possible for everyone involved. The interviewer hates the process just as much as you. Of course, do your research about the company. Think of relevant questions to ask the interviewer. Prepare for difficult interview questions. And don't be a moron. Her saying cake was so authentic. I'm positive she didn't plan it. That just came naturally to her. Lol. If I tried to pull off that line in an interview, I'm sure it would come off as awkward and saccharine. Like you said, when I was graduating college I got interview tips from my dad, who was heavily involved in the hiring process at his company for his department. His advice on this one, which I've used ever since and has gone great, was, the whole, say a weakness that's actually a positive, has been done to death and is such common knowledge that it's no longer a clever trick and is now seen as avoiding the question. People want to see some self-awareness. Obviously don't bring something absolutely terrible up, but mention a real flaw and most importantly what you've done to address or work with it. For example, the one I tend to use is that I can be forgetful, so I now keep multiple sets of calendars, reminders, notes, etc. to cover as much as possible. I did the same thing when I got my current job. I told them I have ADHD, but it's not too much of an issue, as it has forced me to become incredibly organized and keep notes and checklists and calendar reminders, so I rarely forget stuff, and I'm more organized than most. The only problem is that I sometimes worry about whether I've forgotten something anyway, and need to double-check things. Edit. Well, this blew up. I'm obviously not saying that everyone should disclose all their disabilities, but if you have it under control and can actually put a positive spin on it, such as me being even more organized than the average person because the ADHD forces me to, you can maybe get away with it. I'm also not American, so there's obviously some cultural, legal differences to consider as well, which is why my post was a reply to someone else, not a separate suggestion. Honesty. I don't think honesty is a weakness. I don't give a fuck what you think. I need to say this in an interview before I die. An excellent question, she said in reply. I'm usually drunk, and I'm frequently high. I waste all my time till the end of the day. I care about nothing. I'm here for the pay. I fake lots of sickness. I'm rarely on time. I use my computer for Netflix and Prime. I shirk every duty. I don't think ahead. I steal people's lunches from fridges, she said. I'm racist and ageist and sexist and mean, a zealot, a bigot and all in between. I'm dismal and totally dreadful. You see, he listened politely. He wrote, *honesty, *. Well, I'm here so early that frog hasn't been gilded yet. Obligatory edit. Thanks for popping my gold cherry, kind stranger. For my current job, I said that I had a hard time sharing my ideas with new groups. You, idea hog, you're 18. Deleted. You have a great wife there. Edit. Thank you for popping my silver cherry, kind stranger. Why do you want to work? I'd say my greatest weakness is listening. What's your greatest weakness? Finishing other people's sentences. Sandwiches. I'm terrible at interviews. The more I think of it, saying this half joking would get a laugh and show you as overachieving if you had done well in the interviews. Only if it's the first time they heard it. Otherwise they will give you an unamused glance and make you even more uncomfortable. Interview equivalent of no price tag on it. Must be free. Har har har. Anything else I can get you? $1 million. Har har har. Weak against fire and sharp objects. Underrated comment. We'd make pretty bad Pokemon. Weak to fire, water, electricity, grass, ice, rocks, the ground, steel, fighting, poison, flying, falling. If dragons, fairies, ghosts and psychics existed, we'd probably be weak to them too. Some people are even additionally weak to bugs in the dark. There's nothing that we're actually good at. My biggest weakness is that sometimes in interviews, I have absolutely no idea how to answer some of the questions. *edit. Thanks for popping my gold cherry. Stranger, what is your biggest weakness? Quote, interpreting the semantics of a question while ignoring the pragmatics. Could you give an example? Quote, yes, this is glorious. Terrible handwriting is my biggest weakness. How so? Quote, you'll never know what I wrote down. It looks like a blind man wrote. Edit. And thank you everyone who wished me a happy cake day. I keep replying and whatnot, but I'm about to go to work. So here is one big thank you Also, thanks for making it feel like I'm not alone on the bad handwriting thing. I've always been embarrassed about it, but I appreciate you all with horrid handwriting. I don't feel so alone. All my life I knew I had bad handwriting and was always self-conscious about it. I then started a job in a small office where my boss was super old school and most notes were handwritten. My boss can't read his own handwriting most times. Frame it in terms of something you're looking to improve. Well, at my last performance evaluation I received some constructive criticism regarding X. So since then I've been doing Y and Z to focus on improving in that regard. Honestly though, if an interviewer asks you that ridiculous cliched question, either they have no idea what they're doing and or don't give a shit, or they aren't looking for an answer but just want to see how you respond to being pushed. I work in healthcare and always say, not speaking Spanish, and odds are the interviewer is also not fluent in Spanish, so it comes across as not really a weakness. Win-win. I've heard this is the best answer. And to follow it up with something like, but I'm still trying to improve that language. Puta, I have a hard time saying no. But you just did. Greater than I have a hard time saying the N-word. Mrs. Obama, be ready to maybe get down. What is your greatest weakness? Probably that I have no strengths. Those big blue eyes of yours. My weakness is I can get too focused on a task trying to perfect it, and waste time trying to get a 96 to a 97 when 90 is acceptable. On the blueprints we get they say there is a plus-minus tolerance of 3 mm for my measurements. That is way too huge, and I insist on trying to get it down to at least 1 m, monsieur. I often say something similar, like I get too focused on one particular problem, and sometimes have to just step back and leave it be for a while. To drive home the point, just keep going on and on with the answer and never stop. I used this once and the interviewer said, so you're a perfectionist? Huh, and rolled her eyes. Haven't used it since. My big dick is always getting caught on things and knocking things. So dishonesty is your biggest weakness? Got 'em. Murdered by words. Thank you for watching.